The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Powerful Lessons in Personal Change by Stephen R. Covey. Part 1. The Architecture of Lasting Success. In a world relentlessly chasing the shimmering mirage of success, a silent epidemic is spreading. It's the plague of the accomplished but empty soul. You see it everywhere. Professionals who have climbed to the very top of their corporate ladder, only to find it's leaning against the wrong wall entirely. Husbands and wives who have built a life of apparent perfection, yet feel like strangers in their own home. Parents who have provided everything for their children, except the one thing they crave most: a deep, trusting connection. This isn't a failure of effort. It's a failure of architecture. For the last half-century, we've been sold a bill of goods, a philosophy of success that is alluring, attractive, and ultimately a trap. It's called the personality ethic. It's the world of quick fixes, of social image, of communication skills and positive attitudes used like social lubricants to get what we want. It's the get-rich-quick scheme of human interaction, promising wealth without work, relationships without trust, and success without substance. And here is the crucial point. It sometimes appears to work, for a while. But it's a social band-aid on a festering wound, an aspirin for a chronic disease. It addresses the symptoms, but leaves the underlying problem to grow, untouched, in the dark. But what if this entire approach was flawed from the start? What if there was another way? A path based not on image, but on substance. Not on techniques, but on timeless principles. This is the journey charted by Dr. Stephen R. Covey in his monumental work, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Covey wasn't just a theorist. An internationally respected leadership authority, family expert, and teacher, he spent over 25 years working with thousands of individuals, from CEOs to students, who were achieving incredible outward success, yet struggling with an inner hunger for a congruent, effective life. His search for a solution led him to study 200 years of success literature in America. And you will never guess what he discovered. He noticed a startling pattern. For the first 150 years, success was centered on something he called the character ethic. Concepts like integrity, humility, courage, justice, and patience were seen as the absolute foundation of a successful life. But then, around the time of World War I, the focus shifted. Suddenly, it was all about personality, public image, and quick-fix techniques. The root was forgotten in favor of the fruit. And here is the interesting part. Covey realized this wasn't just an academic discovery. It was the very source of the pain and frustration he saw all around him, and even in his own life. This audio summary is your map out of that trap. It's an exploration of a principle-centered, character-based, inside-out approach to personal and interpersonal effectiveness. We will explore how to achieve private victories, the mastery of self that must precede any success with others, and then move to public victories, the habits of teamwork, communication, and cooperation. Finally, we'll discover the secret to balanced self-renewal that makes it all sustainable. Are you ready to find out how? The lens. How you see the world is how you get the world. Before we can even begin to understand the habits, we have to talk about the lens through which you see your world. Covey calls these lenses paradigms. A paradigm is essentially a map. It's a model, a theory, a frame of reference. It's the way you perceive, understand, and interpret everything that happens to you. And we all know a fundamental truth. The map is not the territory. A map is just an explanation of certain aspects of the territory. Now follow this line of reasoning. Imagine you want to find a specific address in the heart of Chicago. You have a map. You're diligent. You're motivated. You work on your behavior. You double your speed. You work on your attitude. You think more positively. But your efforts only succeed in getting you to the wrong place, faster and happier. you're still utterly lost. Why? Because through a printing error, the map in your hands labeled Chicago is actually a map of Detroit. The fundamental problem has nothing to do with your behavior or your attitude. It has everything to do with having a wrong map. This is one of the most profound flaws of the personality ethic. It's like trying to navigate Chicago with a map of Detroit. To try and change our outward attitudes and behaviors does very little good in the long run if we fail to examine the basic maps from which those attitudes and behaviors flow. The way we see the problem is the problem. Think about it. We see the world not as it is, but as we are, or as we are conditioned to see it. When we describe what we see, we are, in effect, describing ourselves, our perceptions, our paradigms. And if other people disagree with us, what's our immediate reaction? We think something is wrong with them. Covey powerfully illustrates this with a perception exercise from Harvard Business School. Two groups of people are shown a card for 10 seconds. One group sees a drawing of a fashionable young woman. The other group sees a drawing of a sad, old woman. Then, both groups are shown a single composite image that contains both pictures. What do they see? Unfailingly, those conditioned with the young woman's image see the young woman. Those conditioned with the old woman's image see the old woman. And when they try to discuss it, communication breaks down completely. "She's a lovely young lady," one insists. "Lovely? She's an old hag," the other retorts. Both are looking at the exact same lines on the paper. Both are sincere. Both are right. The point is not logical, it's psychological. It demonstrates first how powerfully our conditioning affects our perception. If a mere 10 seconds can have such an impact, what about a lifetime of conditioning from family, friends, and the dominant social paradigm? It also shows that these paradigms are the source of our attitudes and behavior. We cannot act with integrity outside of them. This brings us to a revolutionary concept, the paradigm shift. This is the aha moment, when someone finally sees the composite picture in a new way. Suddenly, a light turns on inside. Thomas Kuhn, in his landmark book, The Structure of Scientific Revolutions, showed that almost every significant breakthrough in science is first a break with old paradigms. Ptolemy saw the Earth at the center of the universe. Copernicus shifted the paradigm by placing the sun at the center. For centuries, government was seen as a monarchy, the divine right of kings. Then, a new paradigm was developed, government of the people, by the people, and for the people, and a constitutional democracy was born. These shifts create powerful change, and Covey argues that the most important paradigm shift we can make is the one that moves us from the outside-in approach of the personality ethic to the inside-out approach of the character ethic. What does inside-out mean? It means you start first with self. More than that, you start with the most inside part of yourself, your paradigms, your character, and your motives. If you want a happy marriage, you must be the kind of person who generates positive energy. If you want a more cooperative teenager, you must be a more understanding, empathic, and loving parent. If you want to be trusted, you must be trustworthy. It says that private victories must precede public victories. This is the foundational principle of the 7 Habits. It's a new map. It's the map of Chicago. And with this correct map, our diligence and our attitude finally begin to matter. With this map, we can begin our journey. Are you starting to see the power in this? Habit 1. Be proactive. The power of personal choice. I know of no more encouraging fact than the unquestionable ability of man to elevate his life by conscious endeavor. That's a quote from Henry David Thoreau, and it perfectly captures the essence of the first and most fundamental habit of highly effective people. Be proactive. To understand this, we must first look at the dark reflection in the social mirror. For decades, we've been fed 3 popular maps that claim to explain human nature. They are the theories of determinism. First, there's genetic determinism. This says, your grandparents did it to you. You have a temper because it's in your DNA. You're Irish, so of course you have a temper. Second, we have psychic determinism. This one says your parents did it to you. Your upbringing and childhood experiences scripted your entire personality. That's why you're afraid of public speaking. It's how your parents raised you. And third, there's environmental determinism. This argues your boss is doing it to you, or your spouse, or the economy, or politics. Someone or something in your environment is responsible for your situation. These maps are all based on the stimulus response theory. Something happens, stimulus, and we are conditioned to react in a particular way, response. But here's the game-changing question. How accurately do these deterministic maps describe the territory of human nature? Are they self-fulfilling prophecies? The answer lies in one of the most harrowing settings of the 20th century, a Nazi death camp. Here, we meet Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist and a Jew, who was imprisoned and subjected to unimaginable torture. His parents, his brother, and his wife died in the camps. His entire family, save for one sister, was wiped out. Frankl himself was tortured and faced death at every moment. But then came the discovery that would change everything. One day, naked and alone in a small room, Frankl became aware of what he would later call the last of the human freedoms. His captors could control his environment. They could do whatever they wanted to his body, but they could not touch his core identity. He, Viktor Frankl, could decide how all of this was going to affect him. And right there is the secret. Between stimulus and response, man has the freedom to choose. This isn't just a nice idea. It's the fundamental principle of our nature. Within this freedom to choose lie the endowments that make us uniquely human. Self-awareness, the ability to examine our own thoughts. Imagination, the ability to create in our minds beyond our present reality. Conscience, a deep inner awareness of right and wrong. An independent will, the ability to act based on our self-awareness, free of all other influences. Animals don't have this. They are programmed by instinct and training. But we can write new programs for ourselves. This is the essence of proactivity. The word means more than just taking initiative. It means that as human beings, we are responsible for our own lives. Our behavior is a function of our decisions, not our conditions. Look at the word responsibility. Responsibility. The ability to choose your response. A reactive person is driven by feelings, by circumstances, by their environment. If the weather is good, they feel good. If it's bad, it ruins their day. If people treat them well, they feel well. If people don't, they become defensive. They build their emotional lives around the behavior of others, empowering the weaknesses of other people to control them. Their language is soaked in determinism. There's nothing I can do. That's just the way I am. He makes me so mad. I have to do that. It's a language that transfers responsibility. A proactive person, however, is driven by values. Carefully thought about, selected, and internalized values. They still feel the influence of external stimuli, but their response is a value-based choice. They carry their own weather with them. As Eleanor Roosevelt observed, no one can hurt you without your consent. This is a bitter pill to swallow for many, especially if we've spent years explaining our misery by blaming our circumstances or someone else's behavior. But here's the key that unlocks the door. Until a person can say, deeply and honestly, I am what I am today because of the choices I made yesterday, that person cannot say, I choose otherwise. Think about the problems you face. They fall into one of three areas. Direct control, your own behavior. Indirect control, other people's behavior. Or no control, your past or situational realities. The proactive approach puts the first step for solving all three of these problems squarely within your grasp. Direct control problems are solved by working on our habits, on our character. Indirect control problems are solved by changing our methods of influence. And no control problems are solved by genuinely and peacefully accepting them and learning to live with them, refusing to empower them to control us. In every case, we have the first step. We have the power to change our habits, to change our methods of influence, and to change the way we see our no-control problems. This is the power of working inside your circle of influence. Imagine two circles. The outer, larger circle contains all of your concerns, your health, your children, problems at work, the national debt. This is your circle of concern. Now within that, a smaller circle contains the things you can actually do something about. This is your circle of influence. Where do you focus your time and energy? Reactive people focus on the circle of concern. They complain about the weaknesses of other people, about problems in the environment, about circumstances over which they have no control. Their focus results in blaming and accusing attitudes and increased feelings of victimization. And you know what happens? The negative energy causes their circle of influence to shrink. But proactive people focus their efforts in the circle of influence. They work on the things they can do something about. The nature of their energy is positive, enlarging, and magnifying, causing their circle of influence to increase. This brings us to the haves and the bees. The circle of concern is filled with the haves. I'll be happy when I have my house paid off. If only I had a better boss. The circle of influence is filled with the bees. I can be more patient. I can be more loving. I can be more creative. It is a character focus. Anytime we think the problem is out there, that thought is the problem. We empower what's out there to control us. The proactive approach is to change from the inside out, to be different, and by being different, to effect positive change in what's out there. The very heart of your circle of influence is your ability to make and keep commitments and promises. Each time we make a promise and keep it, we build the strength of character, the being that makes every other positive thing in our lives possible. So, here's a challenge. A 30-day test. For 30 days, work only in your circle of influence. Make small commitments and keep them. Be a light, not a judge. Be a model, not a critic. Be part of the solution, not part of the problem. When you make a mistake, admit it, correct it, and learn from it immediately. Don't argue for other people's weaknesses, and don't argue for your own. This is the first habit. It's the key to unlocking all the others. Because if you don't believe you are the programmer, you will never write the program. Are you ready to pick up the pen? Habit 2. Begin with the end in mind, your personal constitution. Please take a moment, find a quiet space, clear your mind, and join me in a powerful visualization. In your mind's eye, see yourself going to a funeral. You see the flowers, you hear the soft music, you see the faces of friends and family. As you walk to the front of the room and look inside the casket, you come face to face with yourself. This is your funeral 3 years from today. There are to be 4 speakers. One from your family, your spouse, your child, your sibling. The second is one of your dearest friends. The third is from your work or profession. And the fourth is from your community or a church where you have served. Now think deeply. What would you like each of these speakers to say about you and your life? What kind of husband, wife, father, or mother would you want their words to reflect? What kind of friend? What kind of colleague? What character would you want them to have seen in you? What contributions, what achievements would you want to be remembered for? If you participated seriously in this exercise, you touched for a moment some of your deepest, most fundamental values. This is the essence of Habit 2. Begin with the end in mind. It means to start with a clear understanding of your destination. To know where you're going so that you can better understand where you are now, and so that every step you take is always in the right direction. It's based on a simple principle. All things are created twice. Think about building a house. You create it in every detail mentally before you ever hammer the first nail. You work with ideas, you get a clear image, you reduce it to a blueprint. This is the first creation. The physical creation follows. The carpenter's rule is measure twice, cut once. You have to be sure the blueprint is what you want before you start building. This principle holds true for everything. A business begins with a business plan. A garden begins with a layout. A speech begins with an outline. But here is the catch. If we do not develop our own self-awareness and become responsible for our own first creations, we empower other people and circumstances to shape our lives by default. We reactively live out the scripts handed to us by family, by society, by the pressures of the moment. We become the second creation of other people's agendas or past habits. Habit 1 says, you are the creator. Habit 2 is the first creation. This is the habit of personal leadership. Management is doing things right. Leadership is doing the right things. Management is efficiency in climbing the ladder of success. Leadership determines whether the ladder is leaning against the right wall. Imagine a group of producers cutting their way through a jungle. They're busy, they're efficient. The managers are behind them, sharpening the machetes, setting up schedules. The leader is the one who climbs the tallest tree, surveys the entire situation, and yells, "Wrong jungle!" And how do the busy, efficient producers and managers often respond? Shut up, we're making progress. We are often so busy cutting through the undergrowth, we don't even realize we are in the wrong jungle. Leadership must come first. So how do we take charge of our own first creation? The most effective way is to develop a personal mission statement. This is not just a list of goals, it's a personal constitution. It focuses on what you want to be, character, and to do, contributions and achievements, and on the values or principles upon which being and doing are based. Writing a mission statement is a process of deep introspection. It forces you to think through your priorities carefully and align your behavior with your beliefs. It connects you with your own unique purpose. As Frankl said, we don't invent our mission, we detect it. And to write it, we must begin at the very center of our circle of influence. Whatever is at the center of your life will be the source of your security, your guidance, your wisdom, and your power. Let's look at some common alternative centers people have, and you'll quickly see how unstable they are. Spouse-centeredness. Your sense of worth comes from your marriage. You become highly vulnerable to your spouse's moods and behaviors. Conflict becomes terrifying because it threatens your very foundation. Family-centeredness. Your worth comes from the family reputation or tradition. You become vulnerable to any changes in that tradition, and you may love your children conditionally based on whether they live up to the family image. Money-centeredness. Your personal worth is determined by your net worth. You become protective and defensive about anything that threatens your economic status. Work and money provide no wisdom, no guidance, and only a very fragile sense of power and security. Work-centeredness. You become a workaholic, sacrificing health and relationships. Your identity is your job title. Your security vanishes if you can't continue in that work. Possession-centeredness. Your sense of self fluctuates based on what you have compared to others. You are in a constant state of threat that your possessions may be lost, stolen, or devalued. Pleasure-centeredness. The constant cry for more. Soon, you are bored with each succeeding level of fun and require a bigger and bigger high. It's a life of narcissism that leaves the heart unfulfilled. Friend or enemy-centeredness. Your self-worth is a function of the social mirror. You are a puppet, and other people are pulling the strings. Church-centeredness. You can be active in a church, but inactive in its gospel. Image becomes a dominant consideration, leading to hypocrisy. The organization itself cannot give you deep, permanent security. Self-centeredness, the most common center today. But like the Dead Sea, it accepts but never gives. It becomes stagnant. The ideal, the only viable option for a truly effective life is to create a clear center from which you consistently derive security, guidance, wisdom, and power. And that center is a principle center. By centering our lives on correct principles, we create a solid foundation for our development. Why? Because correct principles do not change. They are deep, fundamental truths, tightly interwoven into the fabric of life. Fairness, integrity, honesty, human dignity, service, potential, these are not fads. They don't react to anything. They don't die. They are like lighthouses. They are natural laws that cannot be broken. When you are principle-centered, your security is based on principles that do not change, regardless of external conditions. It gives you an immovable, unfailing core. Your guidance comes from a compass which enables you to see where you want to go and how to get there. Your judgment encompasses a broad spectrum of long-term consequences and reflects a wise balance. Your power is the power of a self-aware, knowledgeable, proactive individual, unrestricted by the attitudes and behaviors of others. To create your personal mission statement, you can break it down into the specific role areas of your life: individual, husband, father, manager, friend, and the goals you want to accomplish in each. This gives you balance and harmony. For each role, think of 2 or 3 important results you want to achieve. These goals become the extension of your mission, and they will be vitally different from the goals people normally set because they grow out of your chosen roles and deepest values. This is the work of personal leadership. It requires us to use both sides of our brain. The right brain, the intuitive, creative side, helps us visualize the uncreated potential within us. The left brain, the logical, verbal side, helps us capture that vision in the words of a written mission statement. By beginning with the end in mind, you create a personal constitution. It becomes the criterion by which you measure everything else in your life. You can make your decisions based on your values, not the emotion of the moment. You can act with integrity. You can be truly proactive because your values are clear. This is your blueprint. And now you are ready to build. Habit 3. Put first things first. The art of personal management. There's an old saying, things which matter most must never be at the mercy of things which matter least. This simple truth is the very heart of Habit 3. Put first things first. If Habit 1 says you are the creator and Habit 2 is the first, mental creation, then Habit 3 is the second, physical creation. It's the fulfillment, the actualization, the day in, day out, moment-by-moment practice of living by your principles. It is where the rubber meets the road. It's the exercise of your independent will, your self-discipline, and your integrity. And here's something most people get wrong. They believe their biggest failure is a lack of discipline. But the problem runs deeper than that. The basic problem is that their priorities have not been deeply planted in their hearts and minds. They haven't truly internalized Habit 2. They are trying to manage their lives without a clear vision, hacking at the leaves of behavior without ever examining the roots. Effective management is putting first things first. And while leadership decides what first things are, it is management that puts them first, every single day. Management is discipline, carrying it out. But this isn't discipline in the sense of a drill sergeant. The word discipline derives from disciple, a disciple to a philosophy, to a set of principles, to a mission. If you are an effective manager of yourself, your discipline comes from within. It is a function of your independent will. It's your ability to subordinate your feelings, your impulses, your moods to your own deep values. And how do we do that? The key can be found in a simple but powerful diagram, the time management matrix. Picture a square divided into 4 quadrants. 2 factors define every activity we do: urgent and important. Urgent means it requires immediate attention. It acts on us. A ringing phone is urgent. Importance, on the other hand, has to do with results. If something is important, it contributes to your mission, your values, your high-priority goals. We react to urgent matters. But important matters that are not urgent require more initiative, more proactivity. Now let's look at the 4 quadrants. Quadrant Y is both urgent and important. These are crises or problems. We all have some Quadrant I activities, but many people are consumed by them. They are crisis managers, deadline-driven producers. As long as you focus on Quadrant 1, it just gets bigger and bigger until it dominates you like a pounding surf, knocking you down again and again. The only relief for these people is to escape into Quadrant 4. Quadrant 3 is urgent but not important. Many people spend a great deal of time here thinking they're in Quadrant 1. They react to things that are urgent, assuming they are also important. But guess what? The reality is that the urgency of these matters is often based on the priorities and expectations of others. Quadrant 4 is not urgent and not important. This is the quadrant of time wasters. Trivial busy work, some phone calls, excessive TV watching. People who live almost exclusively in Quadrants 3 and IV lead basically irresponsible lives. And that leaves Quadrant 2. This is the heart of effective personal management. It deals with things that are important but not urgent. Things like building relationships, writing a personal mission statement, long-range planning, exercising, preventive maintenance, preparation. All those things we know we need to do, but somehow seldom get around to because they aren't urgent. Now think back to a question I posed earlier, a question from Covey's work. What one thing could you do that if you did it on a regular basis would make a tremendous positive difference in your life? My guess is that your answer falls squarely into Quadrant 2. It's deeply important, but because it isn't urgent, you don't do it. Effective people are not problem-minded, they are opportunity-minded. They feed opportunities and starve problems. They stay out of Quadrants 3 and IV because those activities aren't important. They shrink Quadrant 1 down to size by spending more time in Quadrant 2. The key is not to prioritize what's on your schedule, but to schedule your priorities. And you can only do that by having the courage to say no to other activities, sometimes apparently urgent things in Quadrant 3. How do you do that? You must have a bigger yes burning inside. Your personal mission statement, your clear sense of values from Habit 2, is that bigger yes. Without it, you'll be pulled apart by the endless, trivial demands of the world. To move into Quadrant 2, we need a new kind of tool, one that is coherent, helping you align your vision, roles, and goals. One that helps you maintain balance in your life, not neglecting key areas. One that has a people dimension, recognizing that effectiveness with people is more important than efficiency with things, and one that is flexible and portable. The way to do this is to organize your life on a weekly basis. Daily planning is often just a way to prioritize crises. Weekly organizing provides much greater balance and context. Here's how it works in 4 steps. Identify roles. Write down your key roles. Individual, husband, father, manager, friend, etc. Just think about the week ahead. Select goals. For each role, think of 2 or 3 important results you want to accomplish in the next 7 days. At least some of these should be Quadrant 2 activities. Scheduling. Look at the week ahead and schedule time to achieve these goals. Block out a 2-hour appointment with yourself on Sunday to work on your mission statement. Schedule an hour 3 times a week for exercise. These are now appointments, not just ideas. Daily adapting. With your week organized, daily planning becomes a simpler matter of adapting. You can review your schedule each morning, see your value-based decisions, and handle unanticipated events with grace, knowing that the truly important things are already anchored in your week. Perhaps the most powerful high-leverage activity there is, however, is stewardship delegation. This isn't go for delegation, go for this, do that, and tell me when it's done. That's a producer's mindset, focused on methods. Stewardship delegation is focused on results. It gives people a choice of method and makes them responsible for the outcome. It is built on trust, and requires a clear, upfront understanding in 5 areas. Desired results. Focus on what, not how. Create a mutual understanding of what success looks like. Guidelines. Identify the parameters and any major failure paths, but don't tell them what to do. Let them learn from your mistakes, but keep the responsibility for results with them. Resources. Identify the human, financial, or technical resources they can use. Accountability. Set up the standards of performance and specific times for evaluation. Consequences. Specify what will happen, good and bad, as a result of the evaluation. Covey tells a magnificent story about delegating the care of the lawn to his 7-year-old son, Stephen. The job was simple: green and clean. He spent 2 weeks training him, ensuring his son had a clear picture of the desired result. He told his son, "You're the boss. You boss yourself. I am your helper. You judge yourself." But for the first few days, his son did nothing. The yard turned yellow. Covey was ready to explode, to go for delegation. "You get out here and do it now." But he knew that would destroy the trust, the stewardship. So instead, he bit his tongue and, at the agreed-upon time, he simply said, "Son, let's walk around the yard as we agreed, and you can show me how it's going." The boy's chin began to quiver. "It's so hard, Dad," he cried, and Covey understood what was hard: self-management. So he offered to help, as agreed. The boy asked him to pick up some garbage that made him sick. And in that moment, when his father honored the agreement, the boy signed that contract in his heart. It became his yard, and he took care of it impeccably all summer. Trust is the highest form of human motivation. It brings out the very best in people. This is what it means to put first things first. It's not about being a slave to your planner. It's about being a disciple to your purpose, your mission, your principles. This is the habit of integrity, of commitment, of walking your talk. This is the private victory that makes all public victories possible. Habit 4. Think win-win. The 6 paradigms of human interaction. Now we transition. We move from the world of private victory to public victory, from self-mastery to effective relationships. And you cannot make this leap with a parachute. There are no shortcuts. You can't talk your way out of problems you behaved yourself into. Effective interdependence can only be built on a foundation of true independence. This is why the first 3 habits are so critical. They give you the character, the core, from which good relationships can naturally flow. Because the most important ingredient we put into any relationship is not what we say or do, but what we are. To understand how to build these relationships, Covey introduces a powerful metaphor: the emotional bank account. Just like a financial bank account, you can make deposits and withdrawals. An emotional bank account describes the amount of trust that's been built up in a relationship. When I make deposits with you, through courtesy, kindness, honesty, keeping commitments, I build up a reserve. The trust is high, communication is easy, instant, and effective. I can even make mistakes, and the emotional reserve will compensate for it. But if I have a habit of making withdrawals, showing disrespect, interrupting you, betraying your trust, ignoring you, the account becomes overdrawn. The trust level gets very low. Then what flexibility do I have? None. I'm walking on minefields. This is the reality in so many organizations, so many marriages, so many families. This emotional bank account is the foundation for the 4th habit, the habit of effective interpersonal leadership. Think win-win. Win-win is not a technique, it is a total philosophy of human interaction. In fact, it's one of 6 paradigms. Let's break them down. Paradigm 1, win-win. This is a frame of mind and heart that constantly seeks mutual benefit in all human interactions. It means agreements or solutions are mutually beneficial and mutually satisfying. Life is seen as a cooperative, not a competitive arena. Win-win is based on the paradigm of the abundance mentality. the belief that there is plenty out there for everybody. One person's success is not achieved at the expense of another's. It's not your way or my way. It's a better way, a higher way. Paradigm 2. Win-lose. This is the paradigm of the race to Bermuda. If I win, you lose. It's the authoritarian approach. Most people are deeply scripted in this mentality from birth, from comparisons in the family, from peer groups, from academia's normal distribution curve, where your A means someone else got a C, from athletics, and from our litigious society. But most of life is not a competition. In an interdependent reality, a short-term win-lose is really a long-term lose-lose. Paradigm 3. Lose-win. This is the doormat philosophy. Go ahead, step on me. I'm a peacemaker. I'll do anything to keep peace. Lose-win is worse than win-lose because it has no standards, no demands, no vision. People who think this way are quick to appease and have little courage to express their own feelings. But here's the problem. Unexpressed feelings never die. They are buried alive and come forth later in uglier ways, like disproportionate rage or psychosomatic illnesses. Paradigm 4. Lose-lose. This is what happens when two stubborn, ego-invested, win-lose people interact. Both become vindictive, wanting to get even, blind to the fact that revenge is a two-edged sword. It's the philosophy of war, of adversarial conflict. Paradigm 5. Win. People with the win mentality don't necessarily want someone else to lose. That's irrelevant. What matters is that they get what they want. They think in terms of securing their own ends and leaving it to others to secure theirs. So, which option is best? It depends on the reality of the situation. In a truly competitive situation with no need for cooperation, win-lose might be appropriate. If the relationship is far more important than a minor issue, lose-win can be a genuine deposit. But in most of life, in our interdependent realities, win-win is the only truly viable alternative. This leads us to the highest expression of this philosophy. Paradigm 6. Win-win or no deal. This is an incredible source of freedom. It basically means that if we can't find a solution that would benefit us both, we agree to disagree agreeably. No deal. No expectations have been created, no contracts signed. It is so much better to realize this up front than to have a relationship or business fail downstream because the expectations were never aligned. When you have no deal as an option, you are liberated. You don't need to manipulate or push your agenda. You can be completely open. The principle of win-win is built upon 5 interdependent dimensions. First, character. Character is the foundation. It comprises 3 traits: integrity, being true to your values; maturity, the balance between courage and consideration; and the abundance mentality, believing there's enough for everyone. Second, relationships. From the foundation of character, you build high-trust relationships, constantly making deposits in the emotional bank account. Third, agreements. Out of these relationships flow agreements that give definition and direction to win-win. These are performance agreements, where desired results, guidelines, resources, accountability, and consequences are clearly defined up front. This allows people to manage themselves, freeing up leaders to lead, not just supervise. Fourth, supportive systems. Win-win can only survive in an organization when the systems support it. You get what you reward. If you talk cooperation but reward competition, you have a losing program. The training system, the compensation system, the information system, all must be built on the principle of win-win. And fifth, process. You cannot achieve win-win ends with win-lose means. The end and the means are the same. The process itself must be win-win. This involves 4 steps. See the problem from the other point of view. Identify the key issues and concerns, not positions. Determine what results would constitute a fully acceptable solution. Identify new options to achieve those results. Habits 5 and 6 will show us how to master this process. But the journey begins here, with a fundamental shift in our hearts and minds. To stop seeing life as a competition and start seeing it as a landscape of boundless opportunity for cooperation and mutual benefit. That is the promise of thinking win-win. Habit 5. Seek first to understand, then to be understood. The power of empathy. Imagine you're having trouble with your eyes, so you go to an optometrist. After a brief listen, he takes off his own glasses and hands them to you. "Here," he says, "put these on. I've worn them for 10 years, and they've worked great for me." You put them on, but it only makes the problem worse. "This is terrible. Everything is a blur." "Well, what's wrong?" he asks. "They work for me. Try harder. Think positively." How much confidence would you have in that optometrist? Not much. You don't trust someone who prescribes before they diagnose. Yet how often do we do exactly that in our communication? We rush in, eager to fix things with good advice, but we fail to take the time to deeply understand the problem first. If I were to summarize in one sentence the single most important principle in the field of interpersonal relations, it would be this: seek first to understand, then to be understood. This principle is the key to effective interpersonal communication, and it represents a profound paradigm shift for most of us. Why? Because we typically seek first to be understood. Most people do not listen with the intent to understand. They listen with the intent to reply. They're either speaking or preparing to speak. They filter everything through their own paradigms, reading their own autobiography into other people's lives. "Oh, I know exactly how you feel," they'll say, before launching into a story about their own experience. They are constantly projecting their own home movies onto other people's behavior. This is the trap of autobiographical responding. We tend to respond in one of four ways. We evaluate, we agree or disagree. We probe. We ask questions from our own frame of reference. We advise. We give counsel based on our own experience. We interpret. We try to figure people out based on our own motives. But did you notice? None of these is about understanding. They are all about us, and they shut people down. Covey introduces a fifth level of listening, the highest form, empathic listening. This isn't the technique of active listening, where you just mimic what someone says. That's often insulting. Empathic listening is listening with the true intent to understand. You get inside another person's frame of reference. You see the world the way they see the world. You understand their paradigm, and you understand how they feel. You listen not just with your ears, but with your eyes and with your heart. You listen for feeling, for meaning, for behavior. Because communications experts estimate that only 10% of our communication is the words we say, 30% is our sounds, and 60% is our body language. Empathic listening is so powerful because it gives you accurate data to work with. You stop projecting and start dealing with the reality inside another person's head and heart. But here's the most important part. Empathic listening provides something every human being craves: psychological air. Next to physical survival, the greatest need of a human being is psychological survival. To be understood, to be affirmed, to be validated, to be appreciated. When you listen with empathy, you give that person psychological air. And only after that vital need is met can you focus on influencing or problem solving. It's also a massive deposit in the emotional bank account. Let's see this in action. A father is talking to his teenage son. "Boy, Dad, I've had it. School is for the birds." A typical autobiographical father might advise, evaluate, or probe. "What do you mean, when I was your age?" Or, "You just need a better attitude." And the conversation quickly devolves into a transactional, frustrating dead end. But what if the father chose empathy instead? "Boy, Dad, I've had it. School is for the birds." The father reflects the feeling. "You're feeling really frustrated about school." This gives the son psychological air. He feels understood. And so he continues, opening up layer by layer, peeling back the onion. He talks about school being impractical, about his friend Joe, who dropped out to become a mechanic. The father continues to rephrase the content and reflect the feeling without judgment. And then, the real problem emerges. "Dad, I took this reading test today. They said I'm reading on a 4th grade level, and I'm in junior high school." Suddenly, everything is different. The father now understands the true source of the pain. He hasn't wasted time giving useless advice about being an auto mechanic. He's at the root of the problem. And now, because the trust is there, his son asks him, "What do you think I should do, Dad?" This is the moment of transformation. By seeking first to understand, the father has turned a surface-level transaction into a transformational opportunity. He and his son are now on the same side of the table, looking at the problem together. This is not easy. It takes courage to be influenced, to become vulnerable. But it is the mark of all true professionals, from doctors to salespeople to engineers. Diagnose before you prescribe. Once you have deeply understood, then you can move to the second half of the habit. Seek to be understood. This takes courage, where understanding required consideration. The early Greeks captured the essence of this in 3 words: ethos, pathos, and logos. Ethos is your personal credibility, the trust you inspire. It's your character. Pathos is the empathic side. It's the feeling, showing you're in alignment with the emotional thrust of the other person's communication. Logos is the logic, the reasoning part of your presentation. Notice the sequence: character, then relationship, then logic. Most people go straight to logos. They lead with their left brain logic, trying to convince others with facts and figures. And they fail completely because they haven't first established trust, ethos, and acknowledged the other person's emotional reality, pathos. When you can present your own ideas clearly, but in the context of a deep understanding of the other person's paradigms and concerns, you significantly increase your credibility. They know you aren't just pushing your own agenda. They know you have their best interests at heart. You're not just trying to win, you're trying to find the best solution for everyone. Habit 5 is something you can practice right now, in every interaction. Put aside your own autobiography and genuinely seek to understand. Listen with your eyes and your heart. And when you do, you will find your circle of influence expanding in ways you never thought possible. Because being influenceable is the key to influencing others. Habit 6. Synergize, the apex of human interaction. When Winston Churchill was called to lead Great Britain during its darkest hour, he remarked that his entire life had prepared him for that moment. In the same way, the exercise of all the previous habits prepares us for the habit of synergy. What is synergy? Simply defined, it means that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. 1 + 1 = 3, or 10, or 1,000. It's the magic that happens when people cooperate creatively. It's the moment when new alternatives are born, solutions that were not on the table before. Synergy is the essence of principle-centered leadership. It is the true test and manifestation of all the other habits put together. You see it everywhere in nature. Plant 2 plants close together, and their roots commingle and improve the soil, helping both grow better than if they were apart. But the real challenge is to apply this principle in our social interactions. And the key to social synergy is the same as it is in nature. Value the differences. This is a massive paradigm shift. Most people in an interdependent reality see differences as a threat. Insecure people want to clone others, to surround themselves with yes people who won't challenge their paradigms. They think uniformity is unity, but it is not. Uniformity is uncreative and boring. Unity is complementariness. The very strength of a relationship is in having another point of view. If two people have the same opinion, one is unnecessary. When someone disagrees with you, a synergistic response is not, "You're wrong." It's, "Good, you see it differently. Help me see what you see." This isn't just a technique. It's a genuine belief that a different perspective will add to your knowledge and lead to a better result. The communication that flows from this mindset is on a different level. Look at the spectrum of communication. At the lowest level, you have defensive, protective communication, born of low trust. This is win-lose or lose-win. It creates more reasons to defend and protect. In the middle, you have respectful communication. This is for mature people who avoid confrontation. They understand intellectually, but they don't open themselves to new possibilities. The result is often compromise. And compromise means 1 + 1 = 1.5. Both parties give something up. But at the highest level, you have synergistic communication. This is where 1 + 1 = 3 or more. This is the realm of the third alternative. Let's go back to our husband and wife planning a vacation. He wants to go fishing in the mountains. She wants to visit her ailing mother. A typical win-lose or compromise approach leads to resentment, guilt, and a withdrawal from the emotional bank account. But a synergistic couple approaches it differently. Because they have a high emotional bank account, habit 4, and they seek first to understand, habit 5, they are on the same side of the table, looking at the problem together. He deeply feels her need to be with her mother. She deeply understands his desire for a family experience for the boys. They pool their desires, and then they brainstorm. "Maybe we could find a place to camp and fish that's also near your mother," he suggests. "We could even plan some activities with the cousins." Or maybe, she says, "We go fishing this time, but I go visit her for a long weekend next month, and you handle things at home." They talk, they create, they invent options for mutual gain. They are no longer locked in a two-option reality. They are fishing for the third alternative. And whatever they decide, it will be better than what either of them proposed initially. They will get what they both truly want and build their relationship in the process. This is the miracle of synergy. It works by unfreezing the negative, restraining forces in a situation, and transforming them into positive, driving forces. You do this by involving people in the problem, immersing them in it, until it becomes their problem, and they become a key part of the solution. This is the culmination. Synergy is the habit that makes all the others come alive in the most challenging and rewarding arena of all, our relationships with other people. Habit 7. Sharpen the saw. The principle of balanced self-renewal. Suppose you come upon a man in the woods, feverishly sawing down a tree. You look exhausted, you say. "How long have you been at it?" "Over 5 hours, he pants, "and I'm beat. This is hard work." "Well, why don't you take a break for a few minutes and sharpen your saw?" you inquire. "I'm sure it would go a lot faster." "I don't have time to sharpen the saw," the man says emphatically. "I'm too busy sawing." Habit 7 is taking time to sharpen the saw. It's the habit that makes all the others possible. It's personal PC, preserving and enhancing the greatest asset you have, you. It's the process of renewing the 4 dimensions of your nature: physical, spiritual, mental, and social, emotional. This is the ultimate quadrant 2 activity. It's important, but rarely urgent. And because it's not urgent, it is often neglected. The physical dimension. This means caring for your body, eating right, getting enough rest, and exercising regularly. We're not talking about becoming a world-class athlete. We're talking about a minimum of 30 minutes a day, every other day. A good program builds endurance, aerobic exercise, flexibility, stretching, and strength resistance exercises. The greatest benefit of regular exercise isn't just physical health. It's the development of your proactive muscles. As you act based on the value of physical well-being, your self-esteem, self-confidence, and integrity are profoundly affected. The spiritual dimension. This provides leadership to your life. It's your core, your center, your commitment to your value system. For some, this is found in prayer or meditation. For others, it's immersion in great literature or music or communing with nature. It's taking time to draw on the sources that inspire and uplift you. This is why a personal mission statement is so important. It's a text you can review and recommit to daily. The greatest battles of life are fought out daily in the silent chambers of the soul. Win those battles, and public victories will follow. The mental dimension. As soon as we leave school, many of us let our minds atrophy. We stop reading seriously. We stop exploring new subjects. We stop writing critically. Mental renewal means continuing to educate yourself. Read broadly. Expose yourself to great minds. Write. Keep a journal of your thoughts and insights. Organize and plan. Your economic security does not lie in your job. It lies in your own power to produce, to think, to learn, to create, to adapt. That is true financial independence. The social-emotional dimension. This dimension is renewed in our daily interactions with others. It's where we practice habits 4, 5, and 6. Success here is not a matter of intellect. It's a matter of emotion, highly related to our sense of personal security. This intrinsic security comes from living a life of integrity, where your daily habits reflect your deepest values. It comes from service, from helping others in a meaningful way. As Goethe taught, treat a man as he is, and he will remain as he is. Treat a man as he can and should be, and he will become as he can and should be. By choosing to see the best in others, you script them for success and make tremendous deposits in their emotional bank account. This brings us to the final beautiful concept, the upward spiral. Renewal is the process that empowers us to move on an upward spiral of growth and change, of continuous improvement. To keep progressing, we must learn, commit, and do, and then learn, commit, and do again, on a higher and higher plane. The journey of the 7 habits is not a quick fix. It's a lifetime of commitment. It begins from the inside out. It requires us to break out of the comfortable paradigms of the personality ethic and center our lives on timeless principles. As we plant the seeds of these habits and patiently weed and nourish them, we begin to feel the excitement of real growth. We start by acknowledging that between what happens to us and how we respond, there is a space. And in that space lies our growth and our happiness. The work starts with the daily private victory, renewing yourself physically, spiritually, and mentally. This gives you the strength for the public victories, for building relationships of trust and synergy. And as you persist, what was once difficult becomes easier, not because the nature of the task has changed, but because your ability to do has increased. This is the promise of the 7 habits of highly effective people. It is the path to a congruent, effective, and deeply peaceful life, for ourselves and for our posterity. It is the journey to arrive where we began, and to know the place for the first time. The journey is not for the faint of heart, but it is the most worthwhile journey you will ever take.